All right, everybody, today we're gonna go ahead and cover the removal and installation process of the torsion bars on your classic Mopars. Now, if you went ahead and watched my video on the disassembly of the front suspension, as well as the one on the reassembly, you know that I covered that in there, but I did get several requests to go ahead and have a video dedicated just to torsion bars. So that's what we're gonna go ahead and do today, and pull clips from those other videos and have it all here in just one spot. So the first thing you're gonna wanna go ahead and do is measure your ride height, so that way you know where you wanna have the car sitting when you go ahead and put the torsion bars back in the car. I measured from the center of the wheel well down to the ground and measured it on both sides, and that way I have it in exactly where I want it. Go ahead, kept that information aside, and then went ahead and of course jack up the front end, pull the front wheel off, and then the first thing you want to go ahead and do is remove this little guy from the frame rail, which is a stop for the upper control arm to keep the suspension from overextending. So you're going to want to head and remove this, so that way you give that extra amount of travel in your front suspension for removing of the torsion bar. So after you do that, you want to go ahead, the next thing is disconnect the shock from the lower control arm mount. This is something you'll notice in the clips I didn't do, and it made it a little more challenging to go ahead and get the torsion bar out, but you want to go ahead and do that so that way you can let the suspension hang even further. So let's go ahead and jump into the next couple of steps from the other videos, so that way you can see how you go ahead and actually remove the torsion bars. First thing we have to do is back off the adjusting bolt here. Normally I would say go ahead and count the number of turns that you do on this to give you a nice base point for when you put everything back together for your new settings. But since I'm putting new torsion bars in here with a much heavier spring rate, that really doesn't matter. Plus, of course, I've got all new hardware. So we're just gonna go ahead, drive it on out, and then pull this torsion bar out. All right, we've got nice and loose there. So now we can go to the next step in the torsion bar removal process. All right, so the next part on removing torsion bars, go ahead and remove this retaining clip here. Here we go. All right, so once you've got the torsion bar backed off from the lower control arm, you've got the rear clip, retaining clip removed, the next step is actually remove the torsion bar from the vehicle. Now that can be a little bit tricky because they tend to be lodged in there pretty good. And so I went ahead and used this tool from Mancini Racing, and it clamps onto the torsion bar, and then you just beat on it with a hammer and drive the torsion bar out. Now you want to be careful, you don't want to be marring the surface of the smaller diameter section of the torsion bar, because you can damage the torsion bar that way. So that's why you want to try and use these special tools, especially if you're going to be reusing torsion bars. Now if you're just going to be tossing the torsion bars, then it doesn't really matter. And then of course the other thing you want to take into note is when you're removing them is to mark them left and right, because if you put them in the wrong side of the car, you'll end up having some problems down the road with them drooping, because they'll lose their spring rate. And so that's how we go ahead and get the torsion bars out. Now the installation of the torsion bars is pretty simple and straightforward, as well as the removal process was. You want to go ahead and put grease in the torsion bar cross member, as well as the cavity of the socket end of the lower control arm for the torsion bar, as well as the two ends of the torsion bar. Then you just go ahead and slide it in place, put the boot on, of course, for the torsion bar cross member, and then go ahead and start jacking on the lower control arm, so that way you can get it properly oriented, so that way the torsion bar will slide right in. After you do that, go ahead, put the retaining clip back on the end of the torsion bar cross member, and the installation is done. All right, so once you have the torsion bar installed, the next thing to do is adjust it. And basically you just want to go ahead and tighten up the adjusting bolts on the lower control arms until you get the ride height that you had before, or what new ride height you want for the car. And this might be a bit of a trial and error, because you're going to have to go ahead, get an initial adjustment done, take the car for a ride around the block, come back, see how it's settled, and continue the process of adjusting the torsion bars until you get the car at this ride height that you want. And that's it. That's how simple and straightforward it is. I know this can be definitely a little bit of a daunting task, especially if you've never done it before. I know for me, the first time I did it, I was absolutely anxious about it, but going through, having done it now a number of times on the variety of e-bodies over the years, it's not a big deal. It's really that simple and straightforward. It's just pulling the clip, pulling them out, putting them in, and adjusting, and it's really a simple process. So I hope you found this information useful. As always, if you did, go ahead and smash that like button. It lets me know what type of videos you guys like. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and put those in the comment section below because I read them all. And on that note, guys, I will see you in the next video.